Hello, hello. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. I am Jessica Hayes, founder of the Lockbox Advantage, and we are here today to talk about what you need to consider as a newly licensed agent when you are first starting out or considering starting out, right? If you're somebody who is investigating the real estate field. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it means to be a real estate agent in our market, in our industry in general. And so, the first thing I like to tell new licensees is congratulations, you are a business owner. And I don't know that a lot of agents go into this thing really fully understanding that. You work with a brokerage, not for a brokerage. You are your own boss. And so, with that in mind, there's a lot of things you need to keep in mind as you get started. So, first and foremost, is you must have a solid grasp on your financials. Okay. Now, when you're first starting out, it is expensive. It feels expensive, right? You've got your pre licensing education fees, your testing fees, your fingerprint fees, your activation fees, continuing education fees. You have to join the NAR and your local board, neither of which is inexpensive. You have to join the local MLS. You have to get an e-key service. Depending on what brokerage you join, you may or may not have even more fees after that, right? So a lot of brokerages are going to have affiliation or joining fees. There's going to be maintenance fees, desk fees, commission splits, errors and omissions insurance, technology fees if you're lucky. If you're lucky, your brokerage will have technology fees because that means that your brokerage provides technology. Now, if your brokerage does not provide technology, you're going to need to think about purchasing a CRM, a transaction management software, an e-signature platform, some sort of tool for you to create meaningful and impressive comparative market analysis tools. You are going to have to consider things like marketing expenses, the cost of your business card, your open house signs, your listing panels or sign writers. You're going to have to think about launching a website and paying for that website maintenance. Always, always, always get professional headshots, guys. It is worth the investment. You've got to think about eventually investing in online advertising or lead generation. But in my opinion, that expense only makes sense after you've set yourself up with lead conversion systems. Okay. And there's just some miscellaneous startup costs that a lot of times people don't think about. You've really got to invest in having professional attire if you don't already have that already. You're likely going to have to increase your vehicle insurance. You're likely going to have to increase your car usage, your fuel usage, and you're likely going to have to start attending more networking events to meet more people, which does not come for free. So, with all of that in mind, it becomes very, very important that you walk into this thing with some sort of contingency fund. I'm not telling you it's impossible without a contingency fund because, quite frankly, a lot of agents make it happen. I am telling you that you'll be a lot more comfortable if you know that you have something to fall back on as you're getting started, because it does take time to begin generating income in this industry. Even if you are an absolute rock star and you convert a lead on day one, let's say your very first day as a licensed agent, you sign an agency agreement. Most people are going to be looking at houses for anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. But we'll put it right in the middle. We'll say it's a month long. So you've got 4 weeks of them looking for a home. So let's say at week 4, you get them into contract. Well, now they have 4 weeks of being in escrow. And that means, best case scenario, you can expect to start receiving money 2 months into your new career. And that is best case scenario. So it makes sense to have some sort of cushion to support yourself while you are launching that business. Okay. Now, keep in mind, most agents are only retaining about 40% of that gross commission income number. And that shocks a lot of people. But most of us are paying around 36, 37% in taxes right away. And then we have significant business expenses. So all of those costs I just mentioned, plus because then you have to add on the transactional expense, the client gifts, the um, what you call it, the inspections, the photos, the professional printing for your listing marketing, the services that you require for listing preparation. All of those expenses continue to add up. And for most agents, the average number, and I'm saying average, some people will net less, there are some people who will net more. You should plan for about 40% retention of that gross commission income number. So, with that in mind, it's going to become very, very important that you plan your prospecting activity according to that goal. So, really, what you want to do when you first get started is say, okay, how much money do I need to generate in order to live the life that I want and stay in this business and continue in this career? Whatever that number is for you, you need to divide it by 40% to figure out what your gross commission income goal should be. Now, once we have your gross commission income goal, we need to figure out how many transactions, considering your area's typical commission rate and typical price point, how many transactions do you need to aim for producing in order to generate that amount of gross income commission? Once we know how many transactions you need to produce, then you can reverse engineer how many conversations you need to have in order to generate that many closings. So I'm going to run through this math here, but if it's very confusing, it's okay. You can always reach out to us. We will help you do this any day of the week. Just book a discovery call. But here's what we do when we're looking at those goals, okay? So we look at that total income goal. We divide it by 40% to get your gross commission income goal. We take that gross commission income goal and we calculate how many transactions you likely need to close in order to generate that. And then we look at your total units goal. And depending on who you are and what your business will likely look like, we figure out how many appointments you need to have. So for most people, we say you should attend 3 times the number of appointments as you need to have closings, because inevitably you're going to be able to close 1 out of 3 of those appointments. Not because you're terrible at closing, but because a lot of times people don't actually perform. Okay. And a lot of times people choose someone else. So, particularly in your first year, you want to plan to close 1 out of 3 of those appointments. Now, we're going to look at that appointment number and we're going to say, okay, in order to hold that many appointments, you're going to need to book 10% more, because you should expect that about 10% of those appointments, unfortunately, are not going to show up or they're going to cancel and not reschedule. So we're going to look at that number. And then we're going to say, okay, are you planning to work mostly with your database or mostly with new business? We find statistically that if you're working mostly with your database, you should expect to convert an appointment 1 out of about 20 conversations. However, if you're going to be working with new business, strangers to you, you should expect to convert 1 appointment booked out of every 40 conversations. And if you're somebody and you think you're probably going to do both of those things, you're going to fall somewhere in the middle, then you're going to want to just say, okay, I'm going to plan for 1 appointment for every 30 conversations I book. Okay. Now, that being the case, now that we know how many conversations you need to have in order to book the number of appointments you need to book, in order to hold the number of appointments you need to hold, in order to close the number of transactions you need to close, in order to generate the income that you need, then we're going to take a very serious look at how much time you will realistically dedicate to prospecting to make that happen. So most realtors work about 40 weeks out of the 52-week year. And when I say that's how much they work, I literally just mean prospecting, because you'll learn quickly that most realtors work on vacation. Most realtors are dealing with transactions, they're dealing with customers. It's terrible, but it's true. That's what happens. So let's say that you are going to actively prospect 40 weeks a year, 5 days a week. We take that whole conversation number, we divide it by 40, and then we divide it by 5. And now you have a very manageable, realistic target. You can feel like a success at the end of the day as long as you've had that number of conversations. And give yourself grace because it's very important for you to understand. You are expecting to hear no 29 times in order to get your one yes. And that tends to be a really difficult thing, particularly for new agents, because rejection doesn't feel good. And a lot of times when you're first starting out, that can feel like failure. So it's very, very important that new agents, especially, understand as long as you're having the conversation, you are winning. Now, as you track your progress, if you're starting to see, well, wait a minute, I'm having 50, 60, 70 conversations and I'm still not getting a yes, then we really need to focus on the skill, right? We need to focus on the script and the skill for the conversation that you're having. It's not insurmountable. And another thing that I think is very, very important for agents to understand is simply that every single conversation counts. Prospecting works. All prospecting works, no matter what it is you're doing, as long as you're doing it consistently and with care, you can generate business. So if you are somebody that loves the phones, go ahead and make cold calls. If you're somebody who loves being belly to belly, go ahead and host open houses or door knock. If you're somebody who doesn't like any of that, that's fine. Go to the bar and talk to people. Be the life of the party. Walk your dog in a busy park, but put a cute little bow tie on them so that people stop to talk to you. I used to, when I was low on contacts, I would wear my name tag on my blouse upside down when I went grocery shopping for the evening, because inevitably people would stop me and say, "Oh, your name tag is upside down." Great. I'm going to start that conversation. Every conversation counts as long as you meet the criteria. The criteria are the conversation must be about real estate at some point. Okay? The conversation must be a two-way communication, meaning the other person has to respond to you. You can't send somebody a text and call that a conversation. And the conversation must be with someone you do not currently have an active agency relationship with. So you cannot count your property tour with your current buyer as a prospecting conversation, because that's no longer prospecting, that's servicing your client. Hopefully that makes sense. But if you can track to that level, you are nearly guaranteed success, because what you can measure, you can improve. And if you find a gap in your conversion rate, you know that that is exactly where you can focus your energy, your development energy. Okay, great. So now that you know how to do it, you need to really focus on where to do it. And choosing a brokerage can be super overwhelming. Now, what's so interesting, a lot of times when I talk to new agents, I get the impression that they feel they are being interviewed by the broker. And I need you to understand you are the consumer in this scenario, and you, in fact, are the interviewer, not the interviewee. The brokerage needs agents in order to run. The brokerage needs agents in order to generate revenue. The broker wants you. You, however, need to find the absolute best fit for you and your business and your goals. So when you're evaluating a brokerage, it's going to be really important that you first evaluate what sort of support and training will be available to you at that brokerage. And is it live or is it on demand? And if it's just on demand, are you someone who will focus on engaging with that content? And be honest with yourself about that. Really try to get a sense of the culture and the environment in that office. Is it an office where there's really nobody ever there? Is it an office where there's lots of people there all the time and you'll have an opportunity to rub elbows and learn from other people? Is there an online community where people would actively engage with one another so that you have an opportunity to learn? And really ask yourself, what is the brand and or reputation of that office? What is the size and presence of that broker? Are there lead gen opportunities? Do they provide technology and tools? Do they have a support staff? And what is the expectation of the services that will be provided? by that support staff. And lastly, what is the commission split? And do not evaluate the commission split until you've evaluated the service, because the question should be, am I getting what I'm paying for? Not, am I netting the most amount of money? And of course, the next question that we inevitably get to is, do I want to take this on as a solo agent or should I join a team? And that's a great question to ask. So you really just want to kind of be honest with yourself about what it is you want out of this career. If you go down the road of choosing to affiliate with a team, again, you are the customer. There is a little bit more of an interview factor in a team environment, but still, it is the team agent that generates revenue for that organization. So you have to make sure that you're getting out of it what you want. And so the benefit of joining a team usually is that you have immediate access to mentorship and guidance and support and systems. If that's not the case in the team that you're looking at, if you join a team that says, well, we don't do one-to-ones, or we don't do accountability, or, we don't have training or resources, or we don't have transactional support or brokerage support or transaction support, or we don't have systems in place that can help you with those things, then I would expect the split you pay for that team to be incredibly low. A lot of teams also will provide leads. And so that in itself can be of great value. Not that they're doing something that you can't do for yourself, but they are investing money that you likely don't have to invest as you are starting out. Some of these teams will spend 20, 30, even $40,000 on a monthly basis when they are generating these leads. And the inflow of leads allows you to stay busy. And obviously, that's going to be to your benefit. So, a few questions to ask, right? When you're considering, do I want to be on a team? Do I want to be solo? Are you okay with not having control over your brand image? Most teams are going to have a very specific set of brand guidelines. This is our logo. These are our colors. These are our fonts. This is what you can do. This is what you cannot do with our logo, as they should, because again, they are running a business. Now, for a lot of agents, that's a no big deal thing, no brainer. You love that that's already done. You can just plug into something that's already working. For a lot of agents, that's actually very disappointing. I do hear agents who say, well, of course I want to have my own brand. Of course I want an opportunity to pick my own colors and pick my own fonts and design my own social media posts and my own flyers and my own website, et cetera, et cetera. If that's something that's very important to you, that's something that you're going to want to discuss with your potential team owner right up front. And if that's not something that's going to be allowable for that team owner, it makes sense for you to select another option if that's a priority. I think what a lot of frustration comes from is when agents join a team, assuming they're going to have that freedom, and then they realize they don't. And you see people butt heads on this all the time. So just be certain that you understand the expectations and limitations of that team and whether or not you're okay with that. If you're not okay with it, be honest with yourself, go a different path. If you are okay with it, fantastic. Go in with your eyes open and abide by that agreement because it's an agreement that you've made. And again, culture, collaboration, networking, what kind of environment are you going to be working in? Is this an environment where, there's 2 or 3 agents who are active in the business and super supportive and more than happy to take your calls and answer your questions and provide you guidance and inspiration and support? Is this a team that's got 40 or 50 agents on it and it's dog eat dog and everybody is responsible for their own production? You have to understand what you are committing to before you commit. Look at that agreement that you would have to sign very, very closely. Do not sign out of excitement. You have to understand every single clause in your affiliation agreement. Make sure you understand what happens if and when you exit the team. Does the team own your database or do you own your database? At what point will you lose access to your systems? If you have pending transactions, are you getting paid on those pending transactions? And there's no right or wrong answer here. The answer will always be whatever you agreed to in your contract. So make sure you understand what you've signed if you choose to go that route. Now, conversely, if you decide you want to be a solo agent, if you really want to maintain that control of your brand, if you really want to maintain that control of your time commitment, you have to also maintain the expenses that come with those decisions, right? So if you affiliate with a brokerage that provides a lot of tech, fantastic. If you affiliate with a brokerage that does not, you've really got to take ownership of that. You have to figure out a database management system that plugs in well to your CRM, right? You have to have your lazy river. You have to have your 15 days to gain. You have to figure out how you're going to personally hone your skills. You have to figure out how to decide what skills need honing. And again, that really comes from the tracking systems that we started this conversation out with. You have to figure out what your marketing and your branding is going to look like. And if you feel like that is an obligation, maybe it makes sense to join a team. If you feel like that is an exciting opportunity, maybe it makes sense for you to try things solo. I genuinely believe that every agent is capable of success as long as you have the right guidance and you are committed to consistency. Um, Speaking of that, the last thing I kind of want to lead you with here is understanding the very clear difference between having a mentor and having a coach. Particularly if you're going to be a solo agent, as a newer agent, it is very, very easy to freeze, right? Just to have absolute inaction. And inaction will always breed consistently bad results. What I find happens is that newly licensed agents join this field and they're so excited and they sit down at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday and twiddle their thumbs and think, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Do not allow that to be your story. That is the reason that you see 80% of agents fail in their first 24 months. It's not because they're bad people. It's not because they're not capable. It's because they simply didn't act. If you are a solo agent and you join a brokerage that offers you a mentorship program, understand that a mentor's job is to help you facilitate transactions that you get in front of. There are rare cases where you will find a mentor who will provide some guidance on prospecting. It is not the job of a mentor to hold your hand through the day-to-day. It is not the job of a mentor to give you specific action items and accountability around those action items. That is what a coach can do for you. If you are somebody who is wanting to invest in a coach, obviously I would love the opportunity to earn your business. If you're not ready for that step, I would highly recommend that you tap into some of our more affordable skill development options, right? We've got these masterminds every Friday on the podcast. Check this stuff out. This content is usually really good and helpful, particularly to the newer agent audience. If you are somebody who has a little bit but not a lot of money to spend, check out our morning commitment call. So the morning commitment call is every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, where we do go over those key performance indicator metrics. We look at the number of contacts you had, the number of appointments you booked, the number of appointments you held, the number of appointments you converted, the number of clients you got into contract, the number of pending transactions that actually closed. And we do that as a group. so that you can always see your personal progress towards your goal as it relates to the progress of that calendar quarter and whether or not you're ahead or behind schedule to meet your annual targets. Now, we also will spend time at the end of those calls just on mastermind topics if and when it's appropriate or if and when somebody has requested we do so. And having that kind of camaraderie in daily commitment is a great way to set yourself up to start your day on the right foot. Um, so that's one thing you can do. If one-on-one coaching is an option, I do think that's more effective, but certainly more costly. So keep those things in mind. And whatever you do, surround yourself with people who are as driven as you are, if not more so, to make success happen. Do not quit. Do not be discouraged. Remember that the goal is to get 29 no's before you get your first yes. And keep going. With that, I'm going to let you all go. I hope you have a fabulously productive day. And yeah, just keep it moving, guys.